Hi, this is Mechanics Productions. This is tutorial 2 of my Ableton Live workflow for making a hip-hop track. Today I'm going to be making variations of parts of the song so that I can later choose the best ones or use different variations of a part in different parts of a song. And another thing I wanted to talk about is vintagizing the sound of a sample or track. And lastly, I want to talk about beefing up the drum. Let's get into it. Yesterday I came up with this. Now I'm going to go back to the string track, double clicking on the header, and here is my sampler instrument. And what I'm going to do to vintagize the sound of this sample is go to the Controls tab on Sampler, and there is an LFO, a low frequency oscillator, that I want to use to make the pitch waver over time a bit, to add sort of a vintage tape effect of slowing down and speeding up over time. Here I have the pitch turned up to 0.10%. I turned off repeat so the LFO does not repeat every time MIDI comes into this instrument to trigger a slice. I can set this LFO waveform to a random form so that it will waver in a less predictable way, and I have the frequency set to 3.81 Hertz. So let's see what that sounds like. I'll solo the string track. See, if I turn off the LFO, you'll hear that the pitch is more static. With it on, it wavers a little bit. If I increase the amount of the pitch wavering, you'll be able to hear it more dramatically. So I'm going to turn it back down to a low value. And there are other things you can introduce in here too, like volume variation. And I also have the filter set here to change as well. You can hear the effect of that on this filter here. It's set to a low pass. If I increase the amount of filter. So that also kind of simulates a bad quality tape. I like to put these to barely noticeable values, so you can't really hear it, but you can on some level feel it, and it makes the sound less linear and machine-like as a result. If you wanted to put some crackling on there that sounds more like a record, then you could use the Ableton vinyl effect. So under audio effects, drive and color, there's a vinyl distortion plugin. So if I double click to add that to the track, you can hear the results. Now if I turn up the volume at the crackling, then you can hear that. And you can change some of these factors to add some other vinyl qualities to it, and down here as well. But I'm going to take that off of here for now. And now I'm going to go into the original melody that I made, click on the clip, Command D or Control D on a PC, and make a copy of it. And now I'm going to make a variation of this. One thing I can do is drag these loop ends and I could try different sections of the melody and find one that sounds good when repeated a lot. In order to move this back and forth like this, I can use the up and down arrow keys on the keyboard once I've clicked on this bar, so I can try out different sections of it that way. Okay, I'm going to just choose this, and now right click and choose crop clip, and now I have just those notes inside, and I'm going to hit Command D to duplicate that. If I want that sequence to start from the middle, then I can just move this over to the middle. In that case, I want to change this a little bit. I'll duplicate that. I'll do something that I often do for the end of a loop, although this is not technically the end of the loop because the end of the loop is right here. Well, one thing I can do to change the loop, so this is at the beginning of it and it extends off to here, is duplicate this loop again, and now I can set the beginning to here and click on this to change the length to 2. Okay, now what I'll do sometimes with the end of a loop, instead of changing the notes, I will repeat the last section before it. Command D and move it with the left arrow key so that this is about where that is before this line. So move this duplicate note here. So let's see how that sounds. Okay, now I will crop this. Now I'm going to bring in the rest of the instruments and see how this loop sounds with them. A lot of the times I will just create the variations along with the rest of the song so that I'm sure that it fits with everything else. But sometimes it's good to try creating things with no background, or even make a different background and create it with that and then put it back into the original context. I can try to make a different bass line to go along with the new variation. I can copy the old bass line, click on the clip, and Command D to duplicate that, and now play it while moving around the loop to different sections and see what sounds good. Okay, so that's a variation. Now I'm going to talk about beefing up the drums a bit. If you go into Audio Effects, Drive and Color, there's an effect called Drum Bus, and that will go a long way towards giving your drums more punch and grit. With the default settings on that, it sounds like this. With it off and turning it on. And one thing you can do to give it more punch is turn this transients knob up. And if you want to give the bass some more boom, you can turn up this boom knob. And you can experiment with the crunch. too much, so I'm going to turn the depth down on that. And then I can either change the offset or I can change the starting point here. Into some audio glitches. So one thing that I start doing early on a lot of times is I will click on any tracks that have plugins on them that use up a lot of CPU power and choose freeze. In the case of the Stylus RMX, since it runs automatically, in order to capture the audio from that, I have to make a MIDI clip by double clicking on a slot and then choose the length of audio that I want it to capture. So I'm going to change the length of this to 8, right click, freeze track. Okay, let's see if that resolves the issue. I can see in the red here. I'm going to just turn this down a little bit. So there I have two different variations of the original track with a little bit of vintagizing and drums beefed up. There's the first version. So that's it for this lesson. Hope you enjoyed that, and stay tuned for the next lessons.